In this video, we are going to discuss about the multiplication of integers, and then we will come up with a summary of the rules with regards to multiplying different signed numbers. Okay, so we will have 4 cases in this discussion. The first case will be about multiplying a positive integer by a positive integer. So, for example, we have 3 times 4. Well, we know that the first number, if we are going to represent that with an array, the first number is the number of rows, and the second number is the number of elements in each row. So if we have 3 times 4, so we have 3 rows, and there are 4 elements in each row. So all in all, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 4, 8, 12. So we have 12 elements altogether. So this shows that whenever we multiply a positive integer and a positive integer, we always get a positive product. Okay, second case is when we multiply a positive integer by a negative integer. So which means that we need 3 rows of -4. So we are using here a 2-tone or 2-color tile. One tile is green, the other tile is orange. So I choose orange to represent the negative side. So because we need -4, so we will need 4 orange tiles, and we need, that's multiplied by 3, so we need 3 rows of orange tiles. Okay, so now we have 3 rows, and in each row there are 4 orange tiles, so which means we have -4 here. So looking at our representation, all our tiles are in orange, so that means everything is negative. So how many? We have 4 in each row, so that means we have 4, 8, 12 orange tiles, so that means we have -12. So 3 times -4 is -12. Before we move on to our last 2 cases, let me explain what the negative means. So if we have -3, or simply we can say the negative of 3, this means the opposite of +3. So if we have +3 represented by 3 green tiles, the opposite of that, that means the other side, is -3. So that's what the negative means. So it's the opposite of 3. Okay, so therefore if you have the negative of 3, that would also mean -1 times 3. So we can say -3 is equal to -1 times 3. Okay. So more examples of opposites. So if we have -5, it means it's the opposite of 5. So we start with 5 positive tiles. So these 5 tiles represent +5, but we need to get the opposite, so which means we need to flip each of this to show the opposite side of the tile. So that's why we now have the opposite of 5, which is -5. Okay, so now let's move on to our third case, where we multiply a negative number by a positive number, and we know that we will get a negative answer. But how do we show that? Okay, so we have -3 times 4. Okay, so remember earlier we discussed about opposites. Okay, so we have to rewrite -3 as -1 times 3. We know that -3 is -1 times 3. And then using the associative property, that is, instead of grouping -1 and +3, I decide to group together 3 and 4. So now 3 and 4 are inside the parentheses. So we now have negative 1 times the product of 3 and 4. That is by the associative property of multiplication. And so negative 1 times the product of 3 and 4 is just the same as the negative of 3 times 4. What does this mean? It says that it is the opposite of 3 times 4. So how do we show that? So let's first start with 3 times 4. 3 times 4 means you have 3 rows and you have 4 elements in each row. Okay? So you have all greens because we have positive 4. So we have 4 green tiles in each row. But then what we need actually is the opposite. So therefore we have to flip each of the tile to show the other side. And that has to be done for every tile in the set. Okay, so now from green, each tile, the orange side of each tile is now showing. So what do we have? We have still 3 rows and still 4 elements in each row. However, instead of green, we now have orange. And all of the elements here are orange. So that means we have 3 rows of 4. So we have 4, 8, 12, 12 orange tiles. And 12 orange tiles means or represent negative 12. So negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. So that shows that negative times a positive integer gives a negative integer. Okay, last case is on the product of 2 negative integers. So negative times negative. So for example, we have negative 3 times negative 4. So doing just the same thing what we did earlier, we express negative 3 as negative 1 times positive 3. So that's by using the associative property, we get now negative 1 times the product of 3 and negative 4, which we can also express as the negative of 3 times negative 4. And 3, so this expression negative of 3 times negative 4 means the opposite of 3 times negative 4. So what does that mean? 3 times negative 4. Okay, so if we are going to represent that using tiles, we have 3 rows, so 1, 2, 3 rows, and each row has 4 negative tiles. So we see we have 4 orange tiles for each row. But then what we need is the opposite, so which means we need to flip each of these tiles and showing the other side, which is green. Now we have 3 rows, still 3 rows, and still 4 elements in each row, but the tiles are now green. So we have 3 rows of 4 green tiles, which means that we have 4, 8, 12, 12 positive tiles in all. So therefore negative 3 times negative 4 is positive 12. So to summarize, we have 4 cases. We have positive times positive is positive. Negative times negative is positive. Positive times negative is negative. Negative times positive is negative. So we get 2 cases where we have a positive product, and that is when the 2 factors are both positive and when both factors are negative. We get a negative product when one factor is positive and the other factor is negative, meaning the factors here have different signs. And we have this multiplication table It's like a multiplication table, but it deals with a sign, wherein we have positive times positive gives us positive, a positive times a negative gives us a negative times a positive gives us a negative, and a negative times a negative gives us a positive. And looking at the table, we can see that if we have even number of negative factors, we get a positive product. Even number, that means we have 0 negative factors or 2 negative factors, we get a positive product. 0 negative factors, that means both factors are positive if we have 2 factors. Then 2 negative factors, that is when both factors are negative. Then we get a negative product if we have odd number of negative factors. That means if we have 1 negative factor, so like this case here, 1 negative factor and a positive gives us a negative product. Then we have a positive factor multiplied to 1 negative factor gives us a negative product. So I hope this presentation will help you understand the multiplication of integers, especially with the sign. And if you have any question, feel free to send me a message through my Facebook, Arlene Villaluna Bachinella. And if you know my email address, feel free to email me. Thank you so much and have a good day.